Well, hey, everybody. Getting ready to record episode 160 of Mike in the Midwest. Oops, I didn't turn the lights on. Hang on. I don't know if that helps in the morning, but we'll say it does. It's an audio podcast, so it doesn't matter. All right, here we go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 160 of Mike in the Midwest, a mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Guess what? My name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast. You can find me on all the socials at Be Our Guest Mike, getting ready to head down to Give Kids the World Village here in just about 3.5 weeks to do our big fundraiser for the great people at Give Kids the World that help those families that need it more than anything right now because they have a child that is going through a life challenging struggle where the family needs to come together for a period of time to rally together, not only for the child who is having the health issue, but also for the siblings. Because a lot of times when the child who is struggling with the the health issue is going through all the treatments and is hospitalized and all that, you got to think about it. The siblings that are luckily still healthy, a lot of times they don't have the normal childhood that they would normally experience because the parents are spending so much time at the hospital, so they have to go and stay with grandparents or aunts and uncles, and they don't get to be with their brother or sister who is hospitalized. So the goal of Give Kids the World is that they can bring these families together. They get to stay in a villa. They get to stay in these really cool housing units, which I've got to tour a couple of years ago. And they get to celebrate every night at the village. I don't know if you know this real quick, right off the top. Every night at the village is another holiday. So, like, one night is Halloween, where all the kids will get Halloween costumes. They're donated to the village. Another night of the week is Christmas, where everybody gets a Christmas present in their villa. So they get to unwrap a gift. Santa will come around one night each week. It's an amazing place because you got to realize, and I know this is sad, but what a great way to celebrate is that the reality is some of these kids may not get to see Christmas in 2029. You know what I'm saying? So let's celebrate Christmas this week. Let's celebrate Christmas on Thursday. Let's bring the joy right now while we have the opportunity. Let's celebrate today. Let's celebrate the now because we have the now. Tomorrow's not promised. So let's bring the joy of Christmas tomorrow, today. And so when you donate, when you bid on these auction items we have, when you throw in a little money into the raffle for our Walt Disney World vacation we're going to give away on September 9th, know it when you do that, I hope that you get the gift or the prize or the item that you're hoping to bid on. But more importantly, I hope you're doing that with joy in your heart, knowing that you are absolutely making a difference. You're helping a dad who maybe has a daughter who is struggling, who, just think about it. I mean, that's all that you would think about if you have a sick child. That you have to still go to work, but at work you're probably just constantly thinking about your sick child. It's a 24/7 thing. And if you don't have a sick child, how lucky are you? So let's all rally together to support these folks. I can't wait to do our part, and I'm just glad that we get to do that. So please be with us. If you could be there September 8th to volunteer with us, 7:30 to 10:30, still time to register. Just go over to the Magic for Less Facebook page. There's a link there. You can just sign up. But noon to 6 on all of our outlets. Join us either virtually right here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Twitch. We'll be streaming live, and you can call in and join us during the show. So we'll be interacting with you guys. We'll have special guests from the village, or you can join us live from Give Kids the World Village if you're in Florida. That's going to be on September 9th from noon to 6 Eastern, 6-hour live show. So hope you will be a part of that and get in on some of the goodies. We're going to have lots of exclusive Disney items that you can bid on, use them for Christmas presents as the holiday season is. I mean, it'll be September. Put them away for a little bit, and we can have a good time. Shout out to Margie. Margie, thanks for tuning in here live as we record the show today. I appreciate that very much. Also, I wanted to say really quickly, we mentioned this on Thursdays. Scott brings this up because we talked about this on Sunday night. I've really been thinking about my friends in Hawaii that were the town that was, and again, I'm from Missouri, so I'm terrible at pronouncing locations that are not like St. Louis and St. Peter's where I live, Missouri. Lihana, the place near Maui that had the devastating fire earlier last week. Just what I've seen of that is just horrific, and the video that I've seen of people that had to literally run into the ocean to escape the flames and the fire, that just those images have just stuck with me over the past week, and it's just such a struggle. And the thing that I've learned is that I've lived a pretty sheltered life in my 49 years here on this earth. Um, I live in, obviously it's Mike in the Midwest, right? That's what I decided to call this little bonus show, because I do have a perspective that's different than Malcolm, my friend in the UK that we talk to sometimes on the live call-in shows, or I got friends in Australia because of the good thing is about the podcast is I've gotten to meet people from all corners of the globe because of technology. I would not have gotten to do that without the podcast. I've been so blessed because of the podcast. It has let me interact with and meet people virtually and many times in person at Walt Disney World that I would never have met before from other different places. Otherwise, my world would be so small here in Missouri. But when I taught down at Space Camp for a couple of summers back in 2002 and 2003, the last week every week, because we taught for 8 weeks and you got a new group of teachers every week, but the last week of the year each summer was reserved for International Space Camp, and that was by invitation only, and it was the teachers of the year from all 50 states, and then they brought over international teachers of the year from different countries. And both years that I was there, you just kind of randomly got assigned teachers, each one of us, for our teams that we taught. I got the Hawaii State Teacher of the Year on my team, both 2002 and 2003 teams of ESDA. And I will say that both times, and I got American Samoa one time. That guy was awesome. He had me dress it up like him, and I had more skin showing than I ever wanted to show it. I was like, I am not going out there like that. I'm putting on my flight suit. It was not good. I said, you guys live on tropical islands and you guys are tan. I'm from Missouri and we're not doing this. We had this like Carnival of Nations kind of thing where everybody dressed like where they're from. Like, I need to put on a Cardinals jersey, like that's what my native attire is. It's a Cardinal jersey and a baseball cap. I don't dress like this, sir. But anyway, I got to meet the teachers of the year from Hawaii. One was female the one year, the other was male, and they were just awesome people. They were so kind. And I've met George, my good friend from Hawaii. He sailed with us on one of the podcast cruises with his wife and his daughter. Every person that I've ever met from Hawaii, it sounds so trite, right? You watch the movie Lilo and Stitch, and the word that comes out of that movie is Ohana. And I feel like George personifies that word. When you see him on Facebook, and I don't get to interact with him on Facebook because my Facebook is just flooded. I've friended everybody and it's hard to keep track of everybody, but I see so many posts. I don't get to interact, but I see things. And George, who's a native Hawaiian with his family, he seems like he loves everybody. And that's every person I've met from Hawaii just feels like they would take you in at a heart, in a heartbeat, and give you food, give you shelter, give you anything you needed, let you pet the guava dog. And my heart just breaks for these people who've lost their homes, who've lost their businesses, who've lost their way of life with the tourism industry, which, that's obviously a tourism based place. So just, keep your prayers going up for the folks out in Maui. Keep the, donations going out to them if you can, and just keep them in your thoughts. And I bought this little, I'll put it on my Instagram or somewhere, but I bought on a whim. We were down at Disney Springs, either before or after the podcast cruise in July. And Mallory always loves going into the Ron John store at Disney Springs, which I do too, because I like the Ron Johns, and I like Cocoa Beach Surf Company at Cocoa Beach over at Port Canaveral. I love Cocoa Beach Surf Company. But we went in there and Mallory got a hoodie, which she's now given to me, which I'm like that. But on a whim, I bought one of those little hula girls that dances on the like tiki little dancing girls, hula girls that it's supposed to sit on your dashboard that when you drive around, it bounces around. But I decided to, I hadn't done anything with it, but after this, I've now put it on my desk here, and it just to remind me of how awesome the Hawaiian, I know it's not Hawaiian authentic, but it's a Hawaiian dancer with a grass skirt. And it's going to stay here in the studio and remind me how awesome my friends from Hawaii are and always think of them. So please keep thinking of them. And yes. So what's going on around here? Paige is back. She went to Mexico with her staff there for a few days because it's another dead period in the NCAA. They can't recruit this week or last week, I guess. So they all rented Airbnb for like 3 days. They flew down to Tulum, and she kept sending me pictures. And if I ever die and go to heaven, the food they were eating was about what I expect when I go through the pearly gates. It was all like chips and guac and all kinds of Mexican fare. So I was like pretty jealous as I was sitting at home. So that was pretty cool. But her flight back to Chicago connected through St. Louis. So instead of getting on the flight back to Chicago, she just came here, and she's still here. She's staying here for a few days. She's probably heading home in the next day or two to get back to work. I did see something super interesting just an hour ago. And it's one of those things like, how did I not know this? Do you ever have these things happen to you? I wonder about this. So Paige is the director of basketball operations for the University of Illinois Chicago women's basketball team, and their mascot is the Flames. And I remember jokingly when she was still working for Mizzou, and she got the offer to go do this job with one of the assistant coaches at Mizzou to take this position. And she's like, well, I could go to the University of Illinois Chicago and, have this position. I'm like, well, what is their mascot? So I need to know, like, you're at Mizzou, I love Mizzou. That's my school, right? That's your school. It's where you graduated from. We're a Mizzou family. We've been black and gold our whole lives. So I was like, what is their mascot? So I got to know, like, when we root for you at this new school, like, what are we going to say? We're going to say, like, are you going to be a Hawkeye? Are you going to be a mule? Because there's around here, there's schools that are mules. There's schools that are fire ants. What are you guys? And we find out they're the Flames. I'm like, oh, Flames. That sounds pretty tough. That's pretty cool. And so I just went with it, right? I had no idea why they were the Flames. And their mascot, like they're the little guy that dresses up and runs around, the furry costume at the games. His name is actually Sparky, and he's pretty awesome. He's a really cool mascot. Anyway, I find out, so they're the UIC, University of Illinois Chicago Flames. I only found out this morning about an hour ago on Twitter why they're called the Flames. And it totally hit me that it makes sense. They're called the Flames because of the big fire in Chicago in the late 1800s, how it burned down almost all the city. But to show how resilient the city was and came back after the big Chicago fire, they remember that time, and that they are kind of like coming back after the Chicago fire, and that they can't be destroyed, that they're tough like that. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I had no idea. I bet you Paige didn't even know that, because I haven't had a chance to talk to her yet. I'm going to ask her. I'm like, do you know why you guys are the Flames? She might know. I don't know. I'm going to quiz her on that here in a minute when I see her. Anyway, I just find that stuff super intriguing. All right, let's get to the feedback from last week's show. Last week, we didn't have a ton of feedback. Kind of makes me sad. You guys must not have great coworkers like I had Jane, Rosemary, and Pam Bullington at Wedgwood Elementary that really shaped my life. But Trisha had some feedback. It was our only feedback from last week. Maybe we were just busy. I'll give you a pass. You guys were busy. And speaking of, I understand, because Pam, my wife, she's back to school. She has meet the teacher tonight. I get it. She's been moving classrooms. She had to unload 50 boxes. If my wife was a patron, which she's not, I always tell her, I tell my wife, and I'm like, you get to be a patron for free. Like when we go out to dinner, I tell her all this all the time. You get like the Patreon feed 24/7. And she says, I would pay double just to churn it off. That's our little joke. But no, she has meet the teacher tonight. So I get to take Mallory to, I don't know if you guys have this at your schools and wherever your kids go, but tonight is the mandatory. You have to be there sports meeting for fall sports. I guess they take attendance. I don't know. I remember I went last year, but since Pam has meet the teacher, I have to be there, because if your child is in a fall sport, which cheerleading is a fall sport, you have to be in the house to get read the riot act about all the rules and regulations for fall sports at your high school. So I have to go to the H at 5:00. So I just know that I'm not eating dinner at my normal time. So I'm just bummed about that, but it's fine. Football starts Friday. So yeah, baby. I'll be at the H on Friday night. All right. Trisha says for her feedback, I share an office with a great group of ladies. They make work fun and less like work. Our personalities complement each other, and we've learned from one another. That's what it's all about. I share an office with Riley most of the time, but since Paige has been home, Riley has been with her and not with me. It's kind of sad. Trish says, on a completely different note, with the Wisconsin State Fair in progress, I thought I'd share some of the new dishes available. We are known for serving deep fried foods and foods served on a stick or both. New offerings this year include the deep fried bacon cheese curds, deep fried Oreo cookie dough on a stick, and the dill pickle donut. Okay, pass on the dill pickle donut. That almost made me gag. I will take 3 of the deep fried Oreo cookie dough on a stick. That is holy cow. I don't even know how many calories that is. And pass the deep fried bacon cheese curds. Holy God. Is this heaven? No, it's Wisconsin State Fair. Oh my gosh, was Trisha, you guys do well. Yeah, I think all the state fairs are going on. I saw Illinois was doing theirs, Missouri's doing theirs. They do theirs in Sedalia, which is on the opposite side of where I am of our state. Um, I've never been to a state fair because the Missouri State Fair, like I said, is like 4 hours away. And it's always they don't start it till back to school time. I don't know why they don't do it like in June or July when everybody's out of school. It's always this time of the year when everybody's getting ready to go back to school. So I've never been to a state fair, but they always look so fun. The Texas State Fair, I've seen that on because that's usually right at the beginning of college football. That'll be like in a few weeks. I've always wanted to go. That thing looks out of control. The Texas State Fair, because I think there's like one of the early football games happens during the Texas State Fair, and maybe it's the the Red River rivalry, like the Texas Oklahoma game or something, where the Texas State Fair is going on with the huge they have gigantic Ferris wheels. They have like sky buckets that go across the state fairgrounds. I mean, it's wild. I would love to do that sometime. But yeah, I need to go to a state fair. Just to eat all the stuff. We have county fairs, and I've gone to those, and they have deep fried Oreos, and we have deep fried Twinkies and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm not missing out on deep fried foods. Not that anybody needs deep fried foods, but anyway, now I'm starving because it's lunchtime. Okay, so let us talk about today's topic. Let me give you a ring. Ring, ring. Today, and I got to get some memories from you guys because we need more feedback for next week's show. Patreon.com/BeOurGuestPodcast. Thanks for being here, but I want you to participate. Remember the days before cell phones, if you're my age. So back in the days before cell phones, you just had a landline. Now, how many of you guys remember your phone number from your childhood? I do. I can remember my phone number. I can remember my grandparents' phone number, both grandparents. I can still remember it in my head. I'm not going to give it because I don't know if I put that out there into the ether, somebody will hack me. I don't know how that works. I don't know why I would, but I'm not going to do that. But I do remember that. I remember the phone number to the roller rink where I worked at because I gave it out all the time. And I'll tell you, I have a story that goes with that in just a second. But first of all, I just want to bring back some random memories of phones. Now, we're not talking cell phones. This is the pre-phone days. So I just remember back in the day, my earliest memories were I didn't have a phone in my room or anything like that. We just had a phone that hung in the kitchen and it hung on the wall. And we also had a rotary phone that sat in, where did it sit? We didn't have the rotary. Actually, my grandparents had the rotary phone, the one where it had the dial, and you had to, and like you had a 9 or a 0. It was like you had to go all the way around, and you did not want to mess up because you had to hang it up and start all over. But that thing was a mess. And my grandparents, my mom's parents, hung on to that rotary phone forever. I mean, I was like in high school, and they still had a rotary phone. Now, we did have that. I remember when I still didn't have a phone in my room. I remember that we got a long cord on the handset. And so like you could take the handset for like 20 feet, 30 feet. So I could reach it because the kitchen was kind of by my room. You could reach it to my room. So that was like a big deal. It was almost like a personal phone where you could call somebody and reach to my room. That was like good living at the time. So that was another memory I had. Now I remember one year too, for Christmas. The thing was, I don't know, like back in the day, so kind of the iterations of what you would ask for. I got my own phone in my room. Now, this wasn't my own phone line. This was on the main house line, but I got my own phone. And the first one I got was like a clear, cheap, like I think it was made by Conair, the people who make hair dryers. Was that right? It seems like it is. Anyway, it was clear though. It was translucent. Like you could look right through it. It was like kind of light blue and you could look right through it. And it was like it's a handset. You could dial it on the inside, but it was just you could look right through it and but it was in my room. So I mean, life wasn't any better because I had a phone in my room. Now, of course, you couldn't use it when anybody else was using it because we only had one phone line for the whole house. And the thing was, eventually, I had a younger sister, 4 years younger than me. She got one in her room. And like, if you were talking to somebody, anybody else in the house could pick up a phone and just listen in. And you would like hear them listening in, like breathing. And that was annoying. So that was back in the day. Now, the other thing was when you called people, if they were on their phone, you would get a busy signal back in the day. It's we don't get those anymore. But I mean, if you were on the phone, that was it. Game over. You couldn't call anybody. Now, when you got call waiting, that was like, oh my gosh, we're living in the future. Because I remember my friend Ryan got call waiting before us. We were always like the last to get any new technology. For the most part, we were kind of cheap. So he got call waiting. So it'd be like, you would call him. And I remember he told me about it, or like I was on the phone with him at his house one day, and it was like, click, click. And so you could hang up on the one you had or hit the hang up button and go over to the other line. It was like, dude, I'm working like Wall Street or something. And you could switch between the lines. And so that was like, oh my gosh, living the dream back in the day with phones. So you could, yeah, you didn't get a busy signal. You could talk to somebody on the other line. I got to switch lines. I got another call. That was cool. Now, if you want to go another step after that, I remember because we eventually got call waiting too. You could actually subscribe to three-way calling. Now, we never had that, and I'll tell you why in a minute, because I came up with a way to do three-way calling, which was more expensive, but it worked out okay. But that's what I had. So let me tell you about the next phone that I got from my room though. Once that little translucent, cheap little $7 clear phone, I decided I had to have this. And I don't know if you guys had one of these. It was another phone that I had to have from my room. It was a phone that had gigantic numbers. It had like a jumbo 1 through like 9, and then the 0 and the pound sign and the star, and a handset. I don't know why I was obsessed with this phone, but I had to have it and asked for it for like Christmas or my birthday. And I just remember I thought that was the coolest thing. When I dial it, you could just basically punch the numbers like with your hand. It was that big. And I had that sucker forever. I loved that phone. That phone was the coolest. So I had that in my room for a while. Now, here's the thing. When you had a sister that was 4 years younger, and my dad and my mom didn't want me tying up the phone all the time, because I mean it was a big deal, like in the late 80s, early 90s. Like you would talk to people on the phone. I mean, nobody right now, I hate talking on the phone. I absolutely hate talking on the phone. I will text you, I will email you, but I do not like talking on the phone. So much so, and this is just a little inside baseball, my phone will not ring unless you are in my contacts. I have that setting on my iPhone that unless you are in my contacts, my contact list is short, unless you're in my favorites, actually. So there's only like 10 numbers on my phone that it will actually ring. Otherwise, it will not even show up that you called. It'll give me like a notification that somebody called, but it will never even ring. And I love that feature. It's a silence unknown calls, because I just don't want to talk on the phone. Like you can leave a message, and I think that's the greatest, but I don't know. Like back in the 80s, you talked. Like that's what you did. You would talk for hours on the phone. But I guess that's how bored we were. I just don't have time to talk on the phone at this point. But anyway, when I've talked about this many times here on the show, I was a dork and a nerd when I was in in 10, 11, 12. I had this Commodore 64, which I loved. I mean, I was always into technology, and I ran what was called a BBS, a bulletin board system, which was like the precursor to the internet. So at first, what you would do is you would hook your computer, your Commodore, up to a modem, and at night people could call in. So I did this on our house phone number. And so what I would do is at night, like at 9 o'clock at night, I would plug my modem into the house phone line and people could call my BBS. It was called Lefty's Hideout. You could call it like from 9 at night until like 6 o'clock in the morning. And then I would take it offline at 6 o'clock in the morning. So the phone wasn't busy, wasn't tied up during the day. So we could use our phone. Well, eventually that got to be a hassle because people would call the BBS number because you would have to publish it all over the place so people knew it was out there so people could call it. So eventually my dad did break down and get me my own phone number. I was like, yes, for my birthday, I got a second phone line just for me. Well, for the BBS. But I mean, I could use it for whatever I wanted, but I used it for the BBS. I changed the name of the BBS to the Far Side, and it became a huge Commodore 64 BBS in St. Louis eventually. But I used that, and I had my own phone line in my bedroom, and it was awesome. But I used it for the BBS for 10 years. But speaking of three-way calling, the way I did that was I bought this contraption at Service Merchandise. And the way it worked was you could plug the home phone line in one jack, and you could plug the BBS line, which is the second phone line, in the second jack. And then it had a button where you could go line 1 or line 2. And then in the middle, there was like a red button. And if you push the red button down, it conferenced both lines together. So basically you could use both lines. And that's how, like, when you're 12, you're like, do you think that girl likes me? So you would like call one girl, and say, whatever, and you could play all those like, games when you're like in 6th grade. So you did all that stuff. So that was kind of some of the fun memories of early phones. Another thing that I remember doing, just so you had an answering machine back in the day, and it was a physical answering machine with a cassette or a mini cassette. And so you'd always have to record the perfect message, and you're always trying to do the funny thing where it is, my message was always at home trying to be like, hello, hello. Are you going to say anything? Like, instead of just like, hey, this is the Rallman house. Nobody's home. Leave a message after the beep. No, because that was like what everybody said. I tried to make it like I was there answering the phone and really get people to talk back. So I'd be like, hello, hello. And, they'd be talking about, eventually they'd figure out and they'd beep. And they'd be like, oh, you stinker. My grandparents would be all mad. So you try to come up with something funny and witty, and I'd always try to change it. The other thing that I remember doing constantly back in these days, because I worked at the skating rink starting at 14 years old. And to be on the cutting edge, we were kind of like, most skating rinks didn't do this, but we did. Remember back in the day, the movie theater, the way you found out the movie times were you either looked them up in the newspaper, which is how most people did it, or you called the phone number for the movie theater and it would just read off the movies that were playing in the times. Well, I did that for all of our everything we did at the skating rink, and I recorded that every single night before I went home. So I'd say, thanks for calling Spinning Wheels Roller Rink on Tuesday night. It's ladies' night, because we had like a ladies' night on Tuesday night where they got in for $1, all girls, all females. And 7 to 9, that's the time. We're gonna have ladies get in for $1, $2.50 for guys. Skate rentals this, and then Friday night's the world famous Friday night session, $10 for everybody, whatever. Playing jackpot bingo, and I'd record this whole thing. But and I would talk about all the specials we were running and all that. I'd record it every night before I went home. But that was like the whole thing. And I just remember recording that under our answering machine at the skating rink, but you had like 90 seconds. And so you had to get all this information in without screwing up. But I because I wanted to do, this was before podcasts and I wanted to do radio stuff. So it was fun for me. But I just remember like it was such a big deal. And like I'd call it. And so, there was like a secret code you could type in where you could remote access it from home. Because it'd be like days where it snowed really hard and we'd close. We wouldn't have our session on Tuesday because it was like too snowy. And I didn't want to have to go up to the rink and do it from the rink. So I just call in and like *62 or something and record. We're closed. Spinning Wheels is closed on Tuesday night. It snowed too much. We'll see you on Thursday. Stuff like that. It was just so fun though. Like it was the stuff back then was just, we thought we were living in the future. And then kind of that bridge between those phones and having 2 lines and all that with pagers, right? So I even had a pager. We were all like little drug dealers back then. Like you had a little Motorola pager. And I mean, you thought you were living back then. This is before you got a cell phone or a bag phone. Cause I got a bag phone first. I got one of those big old bags. They had like a phone with a battery that was like a foot long. I got that because I used to DJ for my dad wedding receptions, and he wanted me to have that in case anything broke. And I was 50 miles away, Marissa, Illinois, somewhere out in the country, DJing a wedding reception at a VFW hall, and I needed to get a hold of him. So he gave me a bag phone. You could only talk to people after 9 o'clock or on the weekends because it was a bajillion dollars before that. Hardly ever use the thing, but I'd roll around with it like I was a big deal in my MGB. But yeah, the pagers, they'd be like translucent colors, like mine was teal, and you had all these special codes people would text you, with. Everybody had a pager. They're like $8 a month. You get them at Best Buy, and people would, text you like, they'd be secret code would mean this, meet me here, go there, this and that. It's just wild to think back on those days because they were fun days. I mean, I enjoyed all that stuff. It was so cool. But I mean, now think about it. Like your iPhone does everything. It's it's the best video camera. It's your Walkman. It sends you text messages. It's email. It's your computer. I mean, it is so amazing what you have in your pocket right now. But man, those days back then were so pretty cool. And when you think back on them, I think very fondly of those days. So what did you have? I want to know not only what equipment did you have in your house, like what kind of phones, what did you ask for Christmas in your like childhood, teen years? Did you have pagers? Um, did you get a second phone line? Were you lucky enough to have that? Did you have to fight with siblings? But what are your memories of, calling the movie theater, the skating rink? What was it like in your town, your school? Did your school use phone technology in some way? I want to hear your memories to share in next week's show. So let's play Mr. Telephone Man, like new edition, and share some of those memories together next week and have a good time. But until we get back together again, I hope you guys have an awesome week. Again, hope we can all rally together for Give Kids the World here in about 20 days. I'm excited for that. But I appreciate you so very much. I don't get to say that enough. I love you guys. And thank you for letting me do what I do. And you guys have an awesome week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon.